"Hey, what do you think you're doing on my computer?" The voice cracked through the quiet like a whip. Maya Williams froze, her fingers suspended mid-keystroke above the mechanical keyboard. The monitor's glow lit up her face, revealing the fear already blooming behind her eyes. She turned slowly, standing up straight as the tall, suited man stepped forward from the shadows of the private dining suite. Nathan Carlile, founder and CEO of Carlile's, the man who didn't tolerate mistakes or intrusions. His sharp gaze swept across the screen behind her. "This is a private system. Who gave you permission?" Maya opened her mouth. Sorry. I was just cleaning, and I saw the screen flash, and..." Before she could finish, Nathan strode across the room and backhanded her across the face. The sound of the slap echoed like gunfire in the polished office. Maya stumbled sideways, one hand clutching her cheek, eyes wide in shock and disbelief. "Get out," Nathan snarled. "Out. Now. I don't care what you thought you were doing. Stay the hell away from anything that doesn't have your name on it." Maya's eyes welled with tears as she tried to steady herself. "Please, just listen for a second. The computer, it was being accessed remotely. I swear I saw the override command come through. I said out." His voice thundered. He didn't want answers, didn't care about context. He saw a waitress at his terminal and reacted with instinct. Protect, punish, purge. Maya clutched her cleaning rag to her chest, hands trembling. "I wasn't trying to steal anything. I was trying to stop something. There was a back door, someone was injecting code." But he wasn't listening. The man had already turned his back on her, pacing toward the console, reaching for the intercom. As she stood there, still catching her breath, still aching from the slap, Maya's heart broke not just from the pain, but from the refusal, the complete erasure of her voice. "I'll leave," she whispered. "But please, look at the code. Just look at it." Nathan said nothing. The only sound was the hum of the system behind him and the uneven rhythm of Maya's breath. She backed toward the door, wiping her tears quickly, pride refusing to let them fall past her chin. Just as she reached for the handle to leave, she heard something, his breath catching. He had turned to glance at the screen. Lines of code scrolled up in clean, tight formation. Efficient, elegant, familiar. His eyes narrowed. No way. He stepped closer, scanning the structure, the variable shorthand, the nesting logic, the embedded comments, the formatting, the very handwriting of the code-matched one he'd seen before. 6 months ago, when the Carlile's mainframe was under attack and one untraceable patch had saved the entire system, a nameless signature, SB. He had spent weeks trying to trace the coder behind that anonymous patch. The style was distinctive, too refined to be random. And here it was, in his own office, written by a janitor. Nathan turned slowly, eyes now searching Maya's face. His fury had been replaced by something else: hesitation. Confusion. "You wrote this?" he asked, the edge in his voice fading into disbelief. Maya hesitated, still gripping the doorknob, still half afraid he might strike her again. "I didn't think anyone would notice," she said hoarsely. "I saw the logs skipping. I heard your engineers talking about it, and I couldn't just walk away." His eyes locked on hers. "SB." She gave the faintest nod. "Maya Brooke Williams. Brooke's my mother's name. I used SB when I sent the patch." Silence. Thick and strange. "You're a janitor," he said. This time the words weren't cold, just disoriented. "I wasn't always," she whispered. "Before this, I was a developer. Before everything fell apart." Nathan stood still, the moment stretching between them, dense with regret. "What happened?" he asked at last, voice softer. Maya hesitated. Her cheek still stung. Her pride burned deeper. But she swallowed hard and met his gaze. "I worked at Vectratech. Found a hidden exploit in their billing module. Reported it internally, quietly. A week later, my badge stopped working. They erased my access, blacklisted me, said I was a risk." Nathan didn't interrupt. "I had a son to feed. I took whatever work I could. I cleaned floors. And when I saw your system flicker tonight, I didn't think I acted. I didn't want recognition. I just couldn't watch another company crash." A pause. Then she added, quieter still, "I just wanted to help." Nathan looked back at the screen, at the code that had once saved him, that she'd written, that he almost destroyed before ever knowing. "You shouldn't be here," he said finally. I know, Maya murmured. Please don't fire me. I wasn't trying to trespass. I was just trying to stop the damage. He didn't answer right away. His eyes drifted to her cheek, the red imprint of his own hand still fading slowly. His mouth tightened. He turned away from the intercom, lowered his hand. Tomorrow, noon, my office. Maya blinked, startled. What? You're going to tell me everything, he said quietly. No more hiding. He didn't apologize, but he didn't strike her again. And that, somehow, was enough to keep her standing. She watched him go, then turned back to the screen, the terminal still lit with quiet lines of logic and fire. And for the first time in years, Maya let herself believe something might begin again. The waiting room outside Nathan Carlile's office felt colder than usual. Maya sat stiffly in the corner chair, dressed in her plain uniform, her hair pulled back tightly, a bruised redness still faint on her cheek where his hand had landed the night before. She'd covered it with light powder, but the ache remained. Not just physical. That kind of pain dug deeper. It whispered, "You don't belong here." But she was here, noon sharp, just as he had said. No one in the hallway looked at her. The receptionist barely acknowledged her presence. They all passed by with practiced indifference, the kind reserved for the invisible. For the woman who emptied their trash, mopped their floors, and vanished before meetings began. At 12:07 the door opened. Nathan stood there, dressed impeccably as always, but his face unreadable. His eyes paused briefly on hers. No apology, no greeting. Maya, come in. She rose slowly, entering the office as if stepping into another life. It smelled of cedarwood and faint citrus, the scent of power, polished down to the grain. He gestured toward the leather seat across from his desk. She sat. He remained standing, facing the Manhattan skyline outside his floor-to-ceiling window, hands in pockets, voice calm. "You're the one who wrote the patch," he said. Not a question, a statement. "Yes," she replied. Her voice barely carried. Nathan turned, slowly. "Why didn't you come forward?" Maya's hands gripped the hem of her uniform. "Because no one would have believed me, and if they had, it would have ruined me." His eyes narrowed. "Explain." She looked at him for a long second, then spoke slowly, deliberately, her voice trembling but never breaking. "I used to work for Vectratech," she said. "Junior developer, contracted, no degree, just hunger and work ethic. I stayed late, built tools no one asked for. I loved it." Nathan gave no visible reaction. He simply listened. "Then one night," she continued, "I stumbled onto a vulnerability in their billing module. At first, I thought it was a bug, but the deeper I dug, the more I saw someone high up was diverting microtransactions into a personal offshore account. Nothing big, just a few cents at a time, but over months, millions." She looked up at him. "I reported it, quietly, through the right channels, didn't accuse anyone, just documented it, and asked for a review." Nathan sat down now, eyes fixed on her. "Within a week, my login was revoked, badge deactivated. Security walked me out with a cardboard box and a scripted HR smile. I was told I'd violated confidentiality, that I was the threat." Maya paused. Her knuckles had gone white. "They made an example out of me. Every application I sent afterward, silence. I was flagged. A risk, a liability. Even jobs I was overqualified for disappeared after background checks. I couldn't afford rent. I couldn't afford daycare." Nathan exhaled, slow, still silent. "I did what I had to," she said simply. "I became invisible." A long pause settled between them. Outside, a seagull flew past the glass. The city was alive, buzzing, but this room, this moment was still. "And the patch you sent to us?" he asked. "I was here late," she said, "mopping the halls outside your security floor. I overheard 2 engineers talking. They'd been trying to plug a breach for days, but nothing worked. They were frustrated. I remembered the structure from my time at Vectra. I checked the logs from a shared terminal. I saw the vulnerability, and I knew how to fix it." She swallowed hard. "So I did. I wrote the patch in 2 hours from a public terminal. Sent it in under a burner email. I didn't want credit. I just couldn't stand by and watch another system collapse when I knew I could stop it." Nathan leaned back, his hands steepled in front of his lips. He stared at her, as though recalibrating the very concept of her. She met his eyes. Quiet, resolute. "No one believes someone like me writes code," she added. "So I stopped trying to be seen, but I never stopped building." If you feel a connection with Maya, give this video a like to empower others who are being overlooked out there. And don't forget to comment where you're watching from. Someone nearby might be watching this story right along with you. He said nothing. Then finally, softly, "Do you have any proof?" Maya reached into her canvas bag and pulled out a worn flash drive. It was scuffed, edges chipped from years of use. She placed it on the desk. "Every tool I've written, every patch, every model, all time, stamped, all mine." He didn't touch it, just stared. "And you've been working here how long?" 4 months. He stood slowly, walking toward the window again. Silence fell again, but this time it didn't sting. It stretched. Finally, Nathan spoke. "You shouldn't be cleaning floors." Maya let out a dry laugh. "Tell that to every HR director in the city." He turned to her again, eyes softening. "They were wrong." "No," she said. "They were powerful. That's all it takes." Nathan crossed the room, picked up the flash drive, turned it in his fingers. "Tomorrow, you'll meet with my engineering team, quietly. Under NDA, I want you to walk them through this." Maya blinked. "You're serious?" "I am." A pause. "And what happens after that?" she asked. "We'll see." Another pause. Then she added, "You hit me." His jaw clenched. "I know. And? I shouldn't have." His voice was low, rougher now. "I didn't see you." She stared at him. "No one does." Nathan nodded slowly. "Then maybe it's time someone did." She stood. He didn't offer a handshake. She didn't expect one. But as Maya walked to the door, something in her spine was straighter, something in her breath lighter. Outside, as the door closed behind her, Nathan looked at the flash drive in his palm and whispered, almost to himself, "SB." He looked up at the skyline, a sliver of uncertainty crossing his face for the first time in years. He had built an empire from code, but he had no idea that the best line ever written had come from a mop bucket. The server room on the 24th floor was little more than a repurposed supply closet, bare walls, humming towers of blinking lights, a folding table, and 2 metal chairs. It had no windows, no view, and definitely no nameplate. But for Maya Williams, it was more space than she'd been given in years. When she arrived that morning, the first thing she noticed was the laptop. It was sleek, matte black, military-grade specs, by the look of it. Sitting neatly on the table, the screen already lit. Just one line of text glowed against a dark background. "This belongs to someone extraordinary. Build without fear." Maya froze. Her hand hovered just above the keyboard. No one was around. No security escort. No Nathan Carlile. Just the laptop, and that single line, like a whisper straight into her chest. She sat slowly. Her fingers trembled as they made contact. The touchpad was warm, responsive. She took a breath and began to type. For the next hour, Maya was silent, lost in motion, lost in the rhythm of keystrokes and logic gates. She rebuilt the backup scheduler from scratch, designed a diagnostic tool to detect backdoor injection attempts, and rewrote the entire user permission hierarchy into a modular sequence. The code came like breath, like memory, like a song she'd never forgotten. Her world had never felt quieter or more alive. At exactly 10 a.m., the door creaked open. Nathan stepped in, trailed by 2 engineers. One a thin man in his 30s with wireframe glasses. The other, a silver-haired woman who walked with the poise of someone who'd seen 1,000 systems collapse and kept them standing anyway. "This is Maya Williams," Nathan said plainly. Neither engineer looked surprised. That unnerved her more than anything. "SB," said the woman, offering a hand. "We've heard the stories." Maya stood, startled, and shook it. "This is Elise Cho," Nathan said, "head of internal systems, and Kevin Linney's with AI infrastructure." Kevin nodded. "Your patch 6 months ago saved our third-quarter launch. We still haven't managed to replicate the structure." "I wasn't expecting a welcome," Maya said cautiously. "You're not getting one," Elise said bluntly. "You're getting a chance." And that was enough. Over the next 3 hours, Maya walked them through her logic, line by line. They asked questions, tough ones. Elise grilled her on buffer sizes and recursion calls. Kevin dissected her threat modeling. At first, Maya answered hesitantly, watching for traps. But as the minutes passed, her voice grew firmer. She knew this language. It was the world that had turned its back, not the code. By the end of the session, Elise sat back and crossed her arms. "Where the hell did they bury you?" she muttered. "In plain sight," Maya said. Later that afternoon, Nathan found her alone in the break room, rinsing out a coffee mug with trembling hands. "They didn't hate me," she said, not turning around. "No," he said, leaning on the counter beside her. "They didn't." Maya exhaled. "I don't know what to do with that. Try accepting it." She turned to face him. "It won't last." "Maybe not," he admitted. "But for now, it's yours." He handed her a small white envelope. Inside was a new access badge. Her name, no longer printed on a temporary sticker, but engraved beneath the Carlile's logo. Department, Cybersecurity Ops, Contract Consultant. She stared at it. "I can't afford daycare," she blurted. "I still work the late shift at Starlight Diner 3 nights a week." "We'll cover it," he said. "You don't owe me anything." "I know," he said. "That's why it's real." She blinked back, the sudden sting in her eyes. "Why are you doing this?" "Because I was wrong," Nathan said simply. "And because your son deserves to see his mother doing what she was meant to do." She didn't speak again, just nodded once, tight and small. That night, she walked home with Zion's hand in hers. The fall air was cool, rustling the trees that lined their block. Zion skipped beside her, one of his sneakers untied, chattering about school and robots, and whether or not pizza could be programmed. At the apartment, she cooked grilled cheese and apple slices. Zion begged her to build a Lego fort while the sandwiches grilled, and she gave in, laughing as he turned the couch cushions into walls. When the door buzzed, she almost didn't answer. But when she opened it, Nathan stood there. In his arms a bright red box of STEM-themed Lego, and in his other hand, a small brown bag. "I brought dinner," he said, "and peace offerings." Zion appeared behind her, eyes going wide. "That's the one with the rocket launcher." Nathan crouched. "I was told it's a critical feature." They spent the evening on the floor, piecing together a wildly inaccurate spaceship, covered in rainbow bricks and paper wings. Maya sat back, watching them, her son, and the man who'd once slapped her without hesitation now patiently attaching boosters to a yellow cockpit. Zion laughed, leaning into Nathan's side. "You're not bad for an old guy." Nathan grinned. "Don't let the board hear that." Later, when Zion fell asleep on the couch, Maya handed Nathan a cup of tea in the kitchen. He accepted it, wrapping both hands around the warmth. "I never imagined this," she said quietly. "I didn't either," he admitted. Silence hung between them, heavy and full. "You still have a long way to go," she said. "I know." She looked down. "And you still haven't apologized." Nathan nodded slowly. "I'm not ready to say it until I understand what it means." Maya didn't smile, but she didn't walk away either. She simply poured him more tea, then leaned against the counter beside him. "I'll take real over perfect," she said. And for the first time in a long time, neither of them felt alone in the room. A week passed. Maya arrived at the office each day before sunrise, long before most of the engineers even unlocked their laptops. She didn't ask for breaks, didn't chat around the espresso machine. She wore her navy cardigan-like armor and worked in Silencer badge, now granting her access not to mop closets, but to secured terminals deep within Carlos's infrastructure division. By Thursday, even Elise had stopped looking over her shoulder. But outside her code, Maya still felt like a trespasser. She walked the halls of glass and chrome like someone on borrowed time, quietly waiting for a door to slam, for the favor to expire, for someone to whisper, "She's just the janitor." That moment came just not how she expected. It was just after 6 p.m. when she stepped into the data vault on sub-level 2, carrying a diagnostic drive. The lights flickered. A chill hung in the air from the precision cooling system. As she began her scan, a door behind her opened. Footsteps, confident, crisp. She didn't look up until the voice spoke. Well, the prodigal hacker." Maya turned. "Marcus Vell, Chief Operating Officer, second in command to Nathan Carlile, and the man who now eyed her as if she were a smudge on his tailored suit. I wasn't aware the janitorial department had gained clearance, he said, voice smooth as ice. Maya straightened. I'm a contract consultant, temporary clearance, reviewed by legal. Yes, Marcus nodded. I read the memo. Vague, rushed, unusually quiet for something involving a woman with a whistleblower record and a reputation for disruption. She said nothing. Marcus stepped closer, arms folded. Do you know what people like you are to a company like this, Miss Williams? Maya met his gaze. Invisible? He smiled. Number radioactive. She said nothing, but the words sat heavy in the air. I don't care how brilliant your code is, Marcus continued. This company was on track for a government contract worth 8 figures. One bad headline, one thread of your past leaking out, and that contract vanishes overnight. I didn't ask to be here, she said, her voice calm. Then maybe you should leave before you're escorted out again, he snapped. Maya flinched. The echo of her last walk of shame cardboard box, silent stairs, the long elevator ride down flashed through her. Marcus leaned in, close enough for her to smell the sharp cologne beneath his words. You think Carlile will protect you? He doesn't protect anyone but his name. You're a phase, a temporary fix. You'll be gone by Q4. He left without another word. Maya stood still, her hands trembling. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She stayed. Later that night, she found herself in the empty cafeteria, sitting across from Nathan with 2 steaming mugs of black coffee between them. He noticed the quiet in her shoulders before he heard her speak. Why'd you bring me in, Nathan? He looked up. Because you're good. Good doesn't matter if someone upstairs decides I'm a liability. He was silent. Marcus came by today. Nathan's brow tensed. He thinks you'll drop me the moment it gets messy. Nathan leaned back. Do you believe that? I've been dropped for less. He sighed. Marcus isn't wrong. The board is anxious. This whole company is under a microscope, and your past it complicates things. Maya stood up. Then say it. Say I'm too risky. Say you regret it. I don't, Nathan said immediately. But I am trying to protect this company. And you. She paused. Then let me protect it too. Let me finish what I started. Nathan looked up. Really looked. You have an idea. She nodded. More than that. A fix. He leaned forward. Tell me. The next morning, Maya stood before a whiteboard in a secure glass-walled meeting room. 5 engineers sat watching, scribbling notes, sipping coffee. At the far end, Nathan watched without a word. Maya's voice was steady. Her hands moved confidently, sketching diagrams of a new AI security modular adaptive, behavior-driven protocol that wouldn't just detect intrusion, it would learn from it, anticipate it. What you're proposing, Elise said slowly, is nearly autonomous threat intelligence. It's already half-written, Maya said. The rest just needs time and processing power. Nathan looked around the room. What's the timeline? 3 weeks, Maya said. Less, if you back off the red tape. Kevin raised his brows. That's unheard of. Maya smiled faintly. So is finding a janitor writing code at midnight. When the room emptied, Nathan pulled her aside. That presentation? I wasn't asking permission, she said. He grinned, just slightly. Good, because I already sent your designs to the AI task force. They want you to lead the pilot. Her expression didn't change right away. It took a second to sink in. Lead it? She repeated. You earned that room today, he said. I just made sure the door stayed open. Maya stepped back into the hallway, heart pounding. She stared down at her own hands, the calluses from years of labor still visible beneath her nails. She wasn't supposed to be here, and yet there she was. That evening, back at the apartment, Zion ran up to her with a crayon drawing in hand. Mama, look, it's you. She crouched to see. He'd drawn her standing in front of a giant glowing screen, wearing a superhero cape, surrounded by green code. She laughed through a tight throat. Is that what I look like now? You fix stuff, he said proudly. Like Iron Man, but smarter. She pulled him into a hug, and for the first time in years, she didn't feel like she was pretending. As he ran off, Maya pinned the drawing to the fridge, right beside the faded eviction notice from last winter. One was the past. The other finally was the future. The article dropped at 8:03 a.m. Maya had just stepped into the glass elevator when her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen and saw the subject line from an anonymous news site. Carlile hires ex-hacker. With a shady past, internal chaos brewing. Her blood went cold. By the time she reached the 38th floor, her inbox was flooded. 3 voicemails, a dozen alerts, and her heart thudded in her chest like it might escape her entirely. She tried to calm herself, but the moment she stepped out of the elevator, she saw it. The looks. Engineers paused in their conversations as she passed. One of the interns, someone she had helped just the day before, pretended not to see her. Elise didn't even nod when their eyes met in the hallway. It wasn't anger. It was fear. Nathan wasn't in his office. His assistant only shook her head when Maya asked. He's with the board. Emergency session. That told her everything. She turned and walked straight to the server room. She needed to do something with her hands, with her mind, anything to stop the sense that the walls were quietly folding in. The laptop was already open, but her fingers hovered above the keyboard, unmoving. They know. Her breathing grew shallow. They know what I used to be, and they're going to decide I still am. A sharp knock shattered the silence. She turned. Marcus Vell stood in the doorway, arms folded, that same icy smirk playing at his lips. Well, he said, I see you've made the morning headlines. Maya stood. I didn't leak anything. He raised an eyebrow. Doesn't matter. It's out, and now we get to clean up after your little legacy. She swallowed the tightness in her throat. You think this discredits me? It discredits the company, he said flatly. You're not the story, Miss Williams. We are. And Nathan's playing with fire, betting everything on a woman who spent the last 4 years mopping floors. Ugh. She tried to speak, but he stepped forward, cutting her off. You think you've earned your place here, but this isn't about code. It's about trust, optics, money. I've done nothing but fix what others missed, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. And yet, Marcus sneered, your past is the headline, not your work. She didn't reply. Couldn't, because in that moment, everything she had feared was manifesting. You should step back, he said, quietly, before you become a liability we can't erase. He turned and left. And for the first time since she stepped into this building, Maya felt herself cracking. She left early. At home, Zion was building a Lego tank on the living room rug when she walked in. He looked up, beamed. Mom, you're back early. She knelt beside him, trying to smile. Yeah, buddy, just needed some air. He showed her the rotating cannon he'd designed. It's for defense, he said, completely serious, in case the bad guys try to break the robot base. She ruffled his hair. Good thinking. Later, after he was asleep, Maya sat on the couch in the dark, laptop open, the article still glowing on the screen. They had pulled her photo from a years-old ID badge. They had labeled her a hacker, a threat. They had written her story without asking her a single question. And Nathan still hadn't called. She closed the laptop slowly and pressed her palms together, hard, like trying to contain something that wanted to burst. The silence in her apartment pressed in, until a knock broke it. She opened the door. Nathan stood there, tie loose, face drawn. He held up a small white takeout bag. There's grilled cheese and tomato soup inside. She stared at him. I didn't know what else to bring. You should go, she said, stepping back. He nodded once. I will. But first I need to say this. She folded her arms. I let them run with it, he said. I sat in that boardroom and said nothing, because I was afraid of the stock price, the press, the shareholders. He looked up at her, eyes raw. And in doing that, I became exactly like the men who destroyed your life the first time. Maya looked away. I didn't just fail you, Nathan continued. I confirmed what you feared most, that your voice still doesn't matter when it should. Tears welled in her eyes before she could stop them. But I'm done being quiet, he said. Tomorrow morning, I'm calling a press conference. I'm going to tell them the truth, that the architect behind our AI rebuild, the mind that saved this company, is you, and that if they want me, they'll take you too. She shook her head. They'll crucify you. Maybe. But at least this time, I'll bleed for the right reason. A long silence followed. Then Maya opened the door wider. You're lucky I like grilled cheese. Nathan smiled, tentative. They sat in the kitchen. No words for a while, just soup, the quiet clinking of spoons. Before he left, Maya looked at him. "You still haven't said it," she whispered. "Said what?" "That you're sorry." He nodded, voice low. "I am. For all of it." She held his eyes a beat longer, then nodded once. "I'll be there tomorrow," she said. "You don't have to." "I want to." That night, as she lay beside her son, listening to his soft breathing, Maya reached out and traced the edge of the drawing he had pinned above his bed. Her, with a cape, in front of a glowing screen. Maybe tomorrow they'd still try to paint her as a villain, but her son saw her as something else entirely, and maybe that was the only truth that mattered. The press conference was scheduled for 9 a.m. sharp. By 8:15, the main lobby of Carlis's headquarters had transformed into a scene from a political drama reporters, with cameras perched on tripods, assistants running cables, executives whispering in clusters near the back wall. A banner stretched across the stage. Innovation and integrity, Carlis's and the future of cybersecurity. Behind the black curtain, Maya stood still. Her heart pounded against her ribs like fists on a locked door. She wore a navy blazer borrowed from Elise, who hadn't said much, but had dropped it off that morning with a clipped, "Don't wrinkle it." Her hair was pinned neatly, but her palms were sweating. She wasn't supposed to be here. Not on a stage. Not in front of cameras. She was the girl who coded in the dark, who wiped down tables while building defense systems in her head. "Maya?" Nathan's voice was calm, steady. He stood beside her, adjusting his tie in the reflection of a chrome panel. "You ready?" She looked up at him. "Number." He smiled gently. "Good. Neither am I." At 8:59, the curtain opened. Flashbulbs popped. A low wave of murmuring rolled through the crowd as Nathan stepped onto the stage. Maya followed one step behind, head high, shoulders squared. Nathan approached the podium. He didn't speak right away. Instead, he scanned the room, letting the silence settle. Then he began. 6 months ago, California Realisis faced a breach that could have destroyed our infrastructure, our reputation, and possibly our entire future. The solution that saved us arrived anonymously. For months, we credited it to our internal team. That was a lie. A stir rippled through the audience. Nathan continued, his voice firm. "Today, I'm here to tell you the truth. That code, the one that saved our systems and rebuilt our core protections, was written by a woman who, at the time, was working in our building as a waitress and janitor. Her name is Maya Williams." Cameras turned to her. Maya felt every lens like a spotlight on old scars. But she didn't flinch. Nathan gestured toward her. "Maya is not a security risk. She is a security architect. She is not a hacker. She is a protector. And she is not a liability. She is the future of this company." A pause. Nathan turned from the microphone, walking back to her side. He extended his hand. She hesitated. Then she stepped forward. The podium seemed taller than she remembered. The lights hotter. She took a breath. "My name is Maya Williams," she began, her voice steady, clear. "I used to write code that no one ever saw. At night, in silence, while raising my son, while surviving a system that told me I didn't belong." The room was quiet. Even the photographers stopped clicking. "I wasn't invisible because I had nothing to offer. I was invisible because no one ever asked if I did." Her fingers gripped the edge of the podium, but her voice grew stronger. "I found a vulnerability. I fixed it. I didn't ask for credit. I didn't ask for trust. But I'm standing here because, for the first time, someone chose to see past my job title, my resume gaps, and my past, and instead they looked at my work." She paused. "I am not the exception. I am the proof." The room erupted. Some stood, others didn't. But the energy had shifted. Her voice had cut through the wall of assumptions. Backstage, Elise stood with her arms crossed, a smirk tugging at the edge of her mouth. "She did it," she muttered to no one in particular. After the conference, Maya stepped into the hall behind the stage, head buzzing, hands trembling. Nathan caught up to her, a rare softness in his face. "You did more than I ever could have." "I didn't do it for you," she said, breathless. "I did it because I was tired of hiding." "And now they know," he said. "Now I know," she corrected. That night, she walked Zion home from school through Central Park. The autumn leaves were golden red, crunching under their feet. He clutched her hand, swinging it as they passed beneath the trees. "Mom, you were on television," he said proudly. "Miss Jenkins said I should be proud of you." Maya smiled. "You are? I always was. But now everyone else is catching up." He paused. "Does this mean we're not poor anymore?" Her breath caught. "Maybe not poor in the same way," she said gently. "But you'll still make grilled cheese?" "Always." They stopped by the playground. Zion darted off to climb the jungle gym. Maya sat on a bench, watching the boy who had once held her hand as she scrubbed diner floors now laughing under a sky that suddenly seemed bigger. Her phone buzzed. A message from Elise. "Prototype passed phase 2. You want to lead the next integration cycle?" A second later, another ping. "Nathan says you get final say on design direction." Maya smiled, then put the phone away. She looked up at the sky, the last streaks of orange fading behind the skyline. And for the first time in a long, long while, she didn't feel like a ghost in her own life. She felt real, zen, and ready. 3 weeks after the press conference, Maya Williams stood in front of a glass wall covered in diagrams, data trees, and fragments of code scribbled in green marker. The newly assembled AI Defense Task Force had gathered in the strategy war room engineers from across the company, each handpicked, each now looking at her not with suspicion, but expectation. Maya tapped the board. Version 3 learns not just from attack patterns but from internal behavioral shifts. Think of it like the immune system. If someone inside starts acting like a virus, the system will flag its subtle anomalies, file behavior, command sequences. Kevin Lynn, sitting in the corner, scratched his chin. "So it treats intent like infection?" "Exactly," Maya replied. "The AI doesn't just react to codate senses, movement, weight, rhythm. It knows when something's off." There was a pause. Then Elise, seated near the front, leaned back with a satisfied grunt. "I've waited 10 years for someone to say that in a meeting and mean it." Maya allowed herself a smile. It still felt new being listened to, her ideas not just heard, but welcomed. After the meeting, as others filtered out, Nathan entered with his coat slung over one arm. "Conference room 2 in 10, he said quietly. "Board wants a progress update." Maya blinked. "They asked for me?" "They didn't. I told them you were coming." She hesitated. "They're going to bring up your past again, aren't they?" she asked. Nathan's expression was unreadable. "They might. But if they do, they'll be looking at a woman standing beside the system that's already doubled our firewall efficiency and tripled our internal response rate. Let them try." She followed him down the hall, not because she trusted the board, but because for once she trusted herself. The conference room was all glass and silence. 8 men and women in suits turned as Maya entered. Marcus Vell sat at the far end, arms folded, mouth set in a familiar disapproval. Nathan gestured for her to begin. Maya stepped to the center of the room. She didn't bring notes. She didn't need them. "I was brought in on a provisional basis to address vulnerabilities in our legacy systems," she began. "In 6 weeks, the AI Defense Corps has mapped 97% of our internal architecture and preempted 3 separate phishing attempt zones from an insider account. The prototype is running at 1.3 milliseconds per cycle, with negligible latency." She clicked a remote. The screen behind her came to life with data visualizations. "It learns faster than any tool we've built because it's modeled after the most adaptive thing in the world: human fear. Not the kind that panics, but the kind that watches, that listens." The room stayed quiet. Then Marcus spoke. "You're not an engineer by degree, Miss Williams." "No," she replied calmly. "You've been arrested before. I was detained, never charged, and only after exposing a multi-million-dollar fraud. You lied about your qualifications to get hired here." "I never lied. I accepted a janitorial job to survive. And when your systems began to fail, I fixed them." A tense breath passed through the room. One of the board members, an older woman with silver hair and a sharp voice, leaned forward. "Why didn't you come to us then, instead of going through back channels?" Maya held her gaze. "Because people like me don't get meetings with people like you. We get warnings, suspensions, handcuffs." Another pause. Then Nathan stood. "You all know the numbers. The press might have painted Maya as a risk. But I'll tell you this. If she walks out of this building, I walk with her. And I don't think we can afford to lose either of us." For a long moment, no one moved. Then Elise, who had slipped in unnoticed, spoke from the back of the room. "Gentleman and lady, we already voted. The protocol's being moved to production. The issue is not Maya's past. It's how fast we're willing to embrace the future." Maya looked at Nathan, then at Elise, then at the room full of decision-makers. No one objected. Afterward, in the hallway, she leaned against the wall, heart finally easing. Nathan stepped beside her. "That's the last time we explain you to anyone." Maya gave a small laugh. "That's optimistic. It's overdue." That weekend, Maya and Zion took the subway to the Brooklyn Science Center. He clutched her hand, practically vibrating with excitement as they walked past the robotics exhibit. At the back of the main hall stood a sleek touchscreen display with the Carlile's logo and a scrolling headline. "New Adaptive Security Core, donated by Carlile's, designed by Maya Williams." Zion stared at it. "That's your name." Maya nodded. "It is." A nearby staffer approached. "Would you like a photo, ma'am? We just installed the plaque." Maya hesitated, then nodded. She knelt beside Zion as the camera clicked. He threw up 2 peace signs and grinned so wide it scrunched his whole face. On the way out, he tugged on her sleeve. "Does this mean we're superheroes now?" She thought for a second, then smiled. "No, buddy. It means we never needed to be." That night, she tucked him into bed and stood at the door watching him sleep. On his nightstand sat the photo in a small frame. On the fridge was the same old drawing her in a cape, except now, it wasn't a fantasy. It was just the truth. The following Monday began quietly, too quietly for a company that had just been thrust into national headlines. Maya Williams entered the main lobby of Carlile's, her ID badge freshly reissued with a new title, Lead Systems Integration Architect. The gold lettering still felt surreal. She passed by familiar janitorial closets she used to mop around, and the scent of citrus cleaner from her early shifts still lingered in her memory. Now, every greeting from a colleague carried a new tone: respect, not pity, curiosity, not dismissal. In the elevator, a young programmer named Jesse turned to her nervously. "Hey, Miss Williams? I just wanted to say my dad saw your interview on Channel 6, he cried. "He said, 'That woman reminds me of your mom when she fought for her teaching license back in '84. Maya smiled, humbled. "Tell him thank you. And tell your mom I said respect." But as she stepped off on the executive floor, her smile faded. A man in a crisp suit, new, tall, unfamiliar, stood just outside Nathan Carlile's office. He wasn't from internal security. His stance was too still, his demeanor too cold. Before she could ask, Elise met her in the hallway, holding a folder. "We have a situation." Maya nodded, following her into an adjacent conference room. 3 of the original board members who approved your appointment have been approached by someone claiming to have evidence that you falsified not just your education, but your entire background, Elise said flatly. "They're calling it whistleblower data." Maya stiffened. "It's fabricated." "Of course it is, but fabricated or not, we're being asked to provide full internal logs for your time on the AI Defense Corps." Maya leaned forward. "Then show them everything. I've got nothing to hide." Elise hesitated. "Maya, the problem isn't whether they believe the code is yours. The problem is who else might have had access to that server." Maya blinked. "You mean the breach? We think it wasn't just external. There may have been a double agent, someone who worked cleanup on the bug you stopped. If they inserted a shadow process during your override, then they could have logged my credentials, made it look like I built something with malicious intent." Maya's mouth went dry. "They're not just questioning what I did," she said slowly. "They're positioning me to take the fall for what they did." Elise nodded grimly. Maya sat back, reeling. "This isn't about old janitor files or forged degrees. This is about erasing what I built and using my name as a smokescreen." A long silence followed. Then Elise spoke. "There's a hearing in 3 days. Internal tribunal. You'll be allowed to speak, but I suggest we prepare evidence real, clear, unshakable." Maya looked down at her hands. They trembled, just slightly. Not from fear, but from the weight of it all. "I'll do it," she said finally. "I'll clear this myself." Later that evening, after Zion had fallen asleep with his head on a stack of superhero comics, Maya reopened her laptop in the kitchen. The soft hum of the dishwasher was the only sound. She accessed the backup logs from the AI Defense Corps. Every override, every command string, every system call. She combed through each one, timestamp by timestamp, matching it against her original work. And then she found it. A discrepancy. At 2:08 a.m., 2 nights before the breach was publicly discovered, someone had triggered a dormant admin portone she never used, one disabled in her protocols. The digital footprint was subtle, but there was a pattern in the behavior. Data copied, not executed. A dry run, invisible unless you were looking for it. Someone had been testing the waters, and they'd used her system to do it. The next day, Maya and Elise met privately with Nathan in the sub-basement, the room with no cameras, just analog security and old-school keys. Nathan looked pale as Maya laid out the findings. "This is internal espionage," he muttered. "Corporate level, maybe even higher. Someone planted a backdoor, not just to our AI, but to our whole network using your work as a Trojan horse. And now they're using me as the fall girl," Maya said bitterly. "No," Nathan said firmly. "Not if we expose them first." He opened a safe behind the wall panel and pulled out a drive. "This is the full legacy audit chain from before your promotion, the only untouched data set. If anyone messed with code while you were still cleaning floors, it'll show up here." They worked through the night, line by line, packet by packet. At dawn, Maya's eyes widened. "There, right there, that's it." Nathan leaned over. It was a deployment command, issued under the credentials of Martin Gravehead of Strategic Risk, a man known for smiling too wide, who had once asked Maya if she knew how to spell encryption. He had run the test operation that allowed the malware to tunnel in, and he had set Maya up before she even had the title to fight back. Nathan's jaw tightened. "We take this to the board." Maya shook her head. "Number, we take this to the press. Let the truth breathe where they can't contain it." Nathan paused. "That will end him." Maya looked out the tiny window, where morning broke across the skyline. "No," she whispered. "It'll free me." She turned back, fire in her eyes. "And I won't let my son grow up thinking silence is safety." 3 days later, the hearing room inside Carlos's headquarters was filled with silence, sharp enough to draw blood. The panel of 5 board members sat behind a polished mahogany desk, their expressions neutral, their pens still. Maya Williams stood alone in the center of the room, no microphone needed. The truth carried its own volume. Nathan Carlile sat behind her, arms folded, his posture silent but unwavering. Elise was nearby, laptop open, projection ready. One board member, a silver-haired woman named Constance Brewster, broke the silence. "Miss Williams, you've been accused of improperly accessing restricted systems and deploying untested code that potentially compromised national security." Maya nodded once. "I understand the accusation, and I'm here to present the truth, not just for my own defense, but for the integrity of this company." With that, Elise tapped a key and the first slide lit up on the screen behind Maya timestamped log showing Maya's overridden command protocols. "This is the code I accessed on the night in question," Maya began. "I intervened because the backup scheduler had been looping caused by a flaw in the timestamp array. But what you don't see in this code is just as important." She walked toward the screen and pointed. "This log shows a hidden call sequence issued 2 days earlier. At 2:08 a.m. I did not make this call." A second slide appeared an archived audit trail from the legacy system, decrypted and timestamp matched. It clearly showed Martin Greaves's credentials executing the deployment. "I was still on janitorial duty the night this code was planted. I didn't even have system access." There were murmurs now. The room shifted. "But I wasn't just blamed," Maya said, her voice growing stronger. "I was targeted. Someone needed a scapegoat who wouldn't be believed. A black single mother working nights with no degree and no pedigree? Perfect target." Constance frowned. "Are you implying racial bias?" "I'm stating systemic exploitation," Maya replied firmly. "This was a setup, and when the system saw someone unexpected rise someone it couldn't control it tried to erase me." "Again," Nathan stood. "The evidence supports everything she's saying. Greaves accessed admin-level credentials to route data off-site. We've confirmed the IP addresses and the packet signatures. He rerouted company code to an offshore shell, using Maya's name as the Trojan shell." Another board member who had voted against Maya's appointment interrupted. "Where is Mr. Greaves now?" Maya looked at the door. As if on cue, it opened. Martin Greaves walked in, flanked by 2 federal agents. The press had already broken the story that morning. Elise had sent the encrypted data dump to 3 major networks at sunrise. Greaves' face was red with fury and disbelief. You backstabbing janitor." Maya stood her ground. "I was a janitor. I also saved this company. You almost destroyed it." Constance turned to the guards. "Please escort Mr. Greaves out. Effective immediately, he is suspended pending federal investigation." As the doors closed behind him, a quiet sigh rippled through the room. Then, unexpectedly, Constance stood. "Miss Williams, you once told me during an elevator ride that you believe justice should be quiet and thorough, that the loudest voices don't always tell the truth. But today, your voice was exactly the one we needed." She extended a hand. The panel stood one by one. A unanimous vote was announced. Maya would retain her position, and a formal apology would be issued to the staff and the public. Hours later, in the company's main atrium, Nathan called an emergency press conference. Standing beneath the vast skylight, Maya faced a wall of cameras and microphones. "I didn't come here to be the hero of someone else's redemption arc," she began. "I came here to do my job, to protect this system from failure even if it didn't protect me." She paused, scanning the room. "But if my journey means something to anyone listening today, let it be this. What you look like, where you come from, or what uniform you wear doesn't determine your worth. What matters is what you do when no one is watching." Behind her, a giant screen displayed the new initiative name, Project Williams Protocol. The very code she'd written was now being implemented across all Carlis's systems to detect and prevent internal breaches. Zion stood in the front row, holding Elise's hand. When he saw his mom finish speaking, he clapped first, hard, then everyone else followed. Afterward, as the atrium began to clear, Maya walked slowly past the places she used to clean: the mop closet, the maintenance elevator, the break room with burnt coffee and flickering lights. She paused at a wall plaque recently installed. It read, "Integrity is what you do when no one is watching in honor of Maya Williams." Nathan joined her there, silent for a moment. Then, finally, he said, "I can never undo what I did that night, Maya. The slap, the way I refused to hear you." She turned to him. "No, you can't. But you listened this time. That matters." He offered his hand, not in apology but in respect. She shook it. As Maya walked out into the sunlit plaza, her steps were slow, purposeful. The weight she'd carried for so long of being overlooked, undervalued, silenced had shifted. Not gone, but transformed. Justice had not come swiftly, but it had come, and she had earned it. Every step, every line of code, every tear in the dark. Maya Williams had not just survived the storm. She rewrote the forecast.